We're going live right now, sir. Okay, we're up.
All right, Mark, you there? You want to unmute and say hello?
Yeah, I can hear and see you get well, James. Thanks.
Okay. It is 7:20, and we will now have our Bay City ISD Board of Trustees special board meeting number 2, Team of 8 training. And so we have 6 trustees in attendance tonight. We'll call this to order. We do have a quorum. Audience with patrons, agenda items only. I don't have an audience anymore. Linda, nobody signed up or sent comments for this meeting? Okay.
No.
Item 3, open session, Team of 8 training regarding board member and superintendent roles and responsibilities. And our attorney Morgan Bean is here with us tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, President. So I'm starting tonight. We're in open session here. We're going to present this training. It's a brief PowerPoint that just generally contains what we ordinarily like to convey to boards and superintendents as your team of 8. This is part of your 3 hours that's required every year for your trustee training. So this will, we are certified provider for that, our firm is. This will go towards your total count. For this evening's training, we're going to do a portion in open session. We're going to convene into closed after the PowerPoint presentation, and then we're going to talk about some specifics, specific takeaways and things that we need to address as far as legal issues with respect to what we're discussing here in open session and applicability moving forward. So with that, I will start with our presentation. So again, Team of 8 is required by the state for you all to engage at least 3 hours a year. So what we do tonight will likely not take up your full 3 hours. You may still need to get some team of 8 training when you go to TASB if you all go, or otherwise. I understand Lone Star governance is imminent, so that will certainly give you well over 3 hours of team of 8 training. It is a team building session between the board and the superintendent, intended to, again, this is required of each board and each board member. The purpose is to enhance the effectiveness of the team and assess any continuing education needs that you all still have. Tonight's Team of 8 training, we're going to, when we go into closed session, we're going to focus on the emphasis with respect to legal obligations in your roles as trustees and as a superintendent. And then we may address some potential revisions to your board operating procedures as well. That you then ultimately would obviously approve and discuss here in open session when we come out of our closed session conversation. So we will also include a review of the roles, rights, and responsibilities of the board as outlined in the framework for governance leadership, which is contained in your policy BBD exhibit. I know you all know how to access your policy online, but when I need to do it, I just go to Google, I type in Bay City ISD policy online. There's your whole policy manual there, and you can refer to this BBD exhibit when you're looking into Team of 8 training requirements. So the State Board of Education has approved your critical areas for development that are contained there in your policy BBD exhibit. That is to focus on your vision, right? Your role as a board is to create the vision of the school district. You will ensure that the shared vision promotes enhanced student achievement. For purposes of our conversation tonight, because you do have Lone Star governance coming up, we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on your vision and your goals. When is that scheduled? Is it rescheduled?
We need to get together, and I'll find a Friday and Saturday that we can do it. So
Okay.
probably late September, October, if I had to guess.
2 days, a walking 2-day training. It's excellent. You're going to benefit so greatly from it. And you are going to hammer out any changes to your vision, your board vision, your district vision during that training. And then structure. Your board is responsible for providing guidance and direction for accomplishing this vision that you're going to set as a team. Structure obviously is going to impact everything that you do as a team of 8 between the board and the superintendent, the board trustees, and each other. So this is the State Board of Education's expectation for you all. Number 3 is accountability, your role in holding the district accountable for meeting those goals and your vision. So the board is ultimately responsible for maintaining and measuring how well the vision is being accomplished, and for communicating that with your communities. We're going to talk just a little bit about your expectations for communication. Advocacy. You as board members are expected to advocate for the vision that you already have in place, those goals that you do have in place, as well as any goals that you establish after your upcoming training. And unity, the board works with the superintendent to lead the district toward the vision. This is where your team of 8 comes from, obviously. You've got 7 elected board members in a normal time. I know we have a vacancy on the board right now, and Mark is here in spirit and on Zoom. So between your 7 presumed board members and your superintendent, you are a Bay City team of 8. So that's where that comes from. Here are your effective elements of effective boards, right? Those boards who win awards and go and represent their districts at TASB as Board of the Year or Region 3 Board of the Year. They have a shared vision between each other and between the board and the superintendent. They communicate effectively and often and clearly. They understand each other's roles. We've got a few slides with respect to roles. They remain engaged and informed and not only meeting once a month to discuss business that they have to. It's a constant engagement. Impartiality is important for your board to maintain as you're carrying out the district's business. And respect differences. That goes for all of us in any profession or any role or obligation, but certainly an element of an effective board where you can only get things accomplished as a team, quite literally, at least a majority of you. So what are the potential strengths and weaknesses of the BC ISD team of 8? We're going to walk through this together as a group. You completed a survey. I understand at least 4 of you told me that you had completed it. When I checked in this afternoon with TASB, he was still only pulling 1 of those surveys, so we don't have those results to go over with you tonight, but I will share those. I figure it must be a glitch. I asked if maybe those wound up in some other district, and he said as long as you clicked Bay City ISD on the drop down, there was really no way for those survey results to go anywhere but in the Bay City ISD bucket. But unfortunately, we only had 1 survey result, and that doesn't tell us anything. This is where I intended to talk about your survey results. So we will revisit that when we do have those results. So again, that was more talking about your survey results. So understanding roles. This is going to be the primary focus of the rest of our conversation. Board and superintendent roles. You've got your board of trustees and your superintendent both working collaboratively toward those goals that you establish. Currently, you have goals in place. Those goals will change sometime in September and will evolve after this board has an opportunity to complete that Lone Star governance and you've had a chance to revise your goals accordingly. Board of Trustees, your primary function as an elected official serving on this board is to set district goals. No one trustee can set the district's goals, at least a majority of you have to agree on what those goals are, and in an ideal world, we have 7 of you plus the superintendent on board with the goals that are set, and that's the purpose of that training you'll have later. You as a board exclusively have the obligation and responsibility of adopting policies to implement those goals. So I did a legislative update training this morning, and I'd say almost half of the bills, I'm telling the administrators this is what the law is how it's going to impact you moving forward, but what the law actually says is the board shall adopt a policy that says X, Y, and Z. Fortunately, you work with TASB, which is a great organization that provides you a policy manual and policy updates when there's a legislative session, but know that ultimately it's your responsibility to review and understand what's in your policy and to adopt those policies with the mindset of reaching your district's goals. You are also responsible for monitoring achievement of those goals. I have a little bubble here. This is the best way for you to monitor the achievement of your goals. In addition to receiving information, asking questions, receiving reports during board meetings, you are hiring and evaluating your superintendent who is responsible for monitoring and implementing the policies that you have in place in order to reach your district's goals. So between what you do during these meetings and what you do when you evaluate your superintendent, what he's doing every other hour of the day when we're not sitting in a meeting, is how you move the district toward reaching those goals. You all are responsible with financial oversight of the district. I know you have a capable CFO who's putting those numbers in front of you, but you make the votes, you approve the budget. I believe that happened already this year, so you know what a taxing job that is to look at that budget line by line, and you have the opportunity to ask questions to come together as a group and approve that budget. Financial oversight belongs to you and not the administration. And you have a responsibility to communicate with your community. How you do that is something that you set forth in your board operating procedures. and your board operating procedures as they currently stand are from 2013, but do contain information about communicating with the community. So we possibly have some revisions in store for how the board effectively communicates with the community directly. So the board has the exclusive power to govern and oversee the management of Texas public schools. Within that, there are some delegated authority. There is some delegated authority for the superintendent as well, some carve-outs, if you will. And then in addition to what the superintendent is statutorily obligated to do, you can also delegate some of your authority, not quite all of it, to the superintendent as well. So these are our action verbs here. You are developing, delegating, supporting, assuring, and channeling. This is basically another way to say everything that I said in my last slide. I don't quite know how to go back on this. Okay. So you're developing your goals, objectives, and adopting those policies. You delegate all administrative duties to the superintendent, who by statute is the chief executive officer of the school district. So if we're a corporation, you are the board, you are the voting members, but you have a CEO that you've hired to run the daily operations. So you're delegating those administrative duties to the superintendent. You are to support the board, employee goals and objectives, programs and activities. That's, you are cheerleaders, more so than your actual cheerleaders next door at the high school. So positive support, constructive criticism, supporting in whatever way you know how to ensure that these goals are ultimately being met. Assuring compliance with laws, rules, deadlines, and board policies. That's why you have our firm here to support you always with respect to any questions that you may have about how laws are implemented, how your policies are being implemented on campuses. We are here to help you with that as well. And then channeling your communications through the chain of command per policy. This is in your board operating procedures as well. Also something we may revisit, but certainly already in the version that you have for 2013 as far as channeling people who come to you with concerns to the right person. More of our action verbs here. Consult with the superintendent on school business. You're all already doing that. You do a great job with that. Establish effective board and superintendent communication and evaluation processes. Your current board operating procedures leave some room here for us to evolve and to include more detail on what your expectations are there. So that's going to be something that you may consider revising. Consider all recommendations brought by the superintendent. He brings those to you in meetings for your consideration and for your thoughtful consideration. So things that go on the consent agenda, which again is governed by your board operating procedures, remain there, and things that are action items. If you thoughtfully consider, ask questions as needed, ask for more information as needed, you're going to be a more effective team. Respect each other, act with common courtesy towards each other and with the superintendent. That's something I don't need to tell any of you, certainly. And involve your community to participate in school district operations, the community and your parents. So these are things, you have stakeholders here. It's your employees, it's your taxpayers, it's your parents, it's your students. So the more people who can be involved, the more successful your district is. The board's powers and duties are actually set forth in law. The great thing about your legal policies, it takes every law that applies to school districts and puts it in that policy manual in one easy place that's searchable. So you're not having to look in the tax code, and then in the occupations code, and then in the education code. It's all there already in your policy for you. You have some mandatory duties, and you have some discretionary powers. This is an important one. It's a limitation on your power as a board member, quite frankly. You can only act as a body corporate. So no one board member can act on behalf of the entire board unless the board has taken action to authorize that person to do so. And that would be action by a vote in a duly called meeting where that item was on the agenda for a vote. So it's called collegial governance power. And you are acting through your votes as at least a majority of the board. You have some official and unofficial roles as trustees. Sorry, in your governance roles. Again, you're setting and developing those policies, so very important to get you closer to establishing or meeting your goals that you've set. You take action on superintendent recommendations and as required by law. You maintain that legal and financial oversight, and you do evaluate the superintendent. That is one of your most important duties that comes around each year, and that's part of your governance role. Your support for the district involves communicating with the community about those goals and vision that you set, assessing the needs and desires of the community, and sharing with the board. You are the mouthpiece for your constituents. They elected you to speak for them, and so it's entirely appropriate for you to keep a pulse, keep your thumb on the pulse of the community about things that matter to them. I know that you're doing that, and you're bringing that with you when you come in here and make decisions in the best interest of the district and the community as a whole. And then directing your stakeholders to the appropriate department or person, again, that is covered by your board operating procedures. So on the flip side, you've got the superintendent who has roles as well, including implementing those district goals, right? So you set the goals, you hand them over to the superintendent, and he goes out and implements them by exercising that administrative authority that you have given him and that the law gives him as well. He manages those daily operations. So again, if you're thinking of the district as a corporation, you all are acting behind the scenes on most days that aren't board meeting days. And Dr. Scott is handling the management of the daily operations of the district to make sure things are running smoothly and bringing those things to you that do require board attention or action. Dr. Scott is responsible for ensuring legal compliance of district activities. So just like you have a hotline to reach us if you have questions about governance issues or district-based legal issues, Dr. Scott and his team have access as well to us as your law firm for any day-to-day questions. So HR-related, student-related, anything of that nature. So that's available as well, and that's part of how he and his team ensure legal compliance. Dr. Scott is also responsible for communicating with the board and the school community in a similar way that you are, but of course from a different perspective. So the superintendent is never speaking on behalf of the board unless there has been a clear board action. Superintendent is speaking on behalf of the administration. So when you see things like a press statement or something like that that's coming from the administration, and not necessarily the board if you haven't taken action on that. And your superintendent, very importantly, serves as leadership of programs and staff. So you've hired this person to be the CEO and the leader for your programs and your employees. These are your superintendent's action verbs: is managing the day-to-day operations of the district, preparing the proposed annual budget that he presents to you for final approval and for thorough review. He's preparing policy recommendations and overseeing the implementation of adopted policies, right? We were out, I think probably this time last year, Dr. Scott and his team recommended us come out and do training on some of your policy expectations, documentation, and things like that, to make sure that your employees, your administrators are implementing those policies the way that you expect them to. So those are ways that Dr. Scott and his team are making sure that they're implementing your policy expectations that you've adopted. Your superintendent is developing administrative regulations to implement policies. So sometimes the policy will specifically say, and the superintendent can develop administrative regulations. Other times the superintendent, because there are gaps in the policy, or because we're getting requests, or there's confusion about how policies apply, the superintendent makes his interpretation of that policy either in consultation with the board or with legal counsel, and develops those administrative regulations to make sure that things are running smoothly before they reach the board level. He's providing leadership and development of academic programs and student performance. It's one of his most important jobs. That doesn't need too much emphasis. He's organizing the central administration and all departments and staffing. So that includes making assignments and filling positions that are vacant, things of that nature. So he is responsible, he and his team in HR are responsible for departments and staffing. Your superintendent is communicating with board members, employees, community members, and stakeholders. Consulting with district level planning committees as they are established and as they function. Making all reports required by state or federal laws and rules. There are quite a few reports that your superintendent is making on behalf of the district and turning information over to TEA or other agencies, the Department of State Health Services during COVID times, SBEC. So that's all happening on a daily basis. And then performing other duties as assigned by the board. Because he is your employee, you have the opportunity to request certain things of him through board action as a body corporate. And so he can perform those other duties that you assign to him. That is the end of the overview on duties. So at this point in time, I have, some legal issues that I want to pluck out of this training and talk to you all about in closed session. And so I would ask, Mr. President, if you're ready,
Yes, ma'am.
if we can adjourn to closed
Anybody
session.
have any questions about the open session presentation? Okay, so item 4, closed session. Unless you have a motion to make it. That's the wrong agenda.
Dr. Scott, do you also have Fridays off right now? What does that change back?
We have this Friday off, this is our last Friday off. And the next Friday we'll start.
So it's closed session. Y'all let me know when we're live.
We're back on now, sir.
You're back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 5, open session. We are back in open session at 10:45 p.m. A, consider and take possible action to update board operating procedures and take any other action deemed as necessary by closed session discussion. Is there a motion to be made? A motion to be made. Item 6, adjournment. Is there a motion to be made?
I motion to adjourn.
Motion been made by trustee Westmoreland, and second to the motion.
Second.
Motion been second by trustee Robinson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.